Welcome to the Human Athlete Podcast, empowering your life transition beyond sport, while celebrating the whole person behind the athlete. With your hosts, Kelsi Stockert, Steve Moore, and Jaime Komer, powered by Athlete Career Transition. Thank you for listening today on the Human Athlete Podcast. I'm Jaime Komer, and we have
Kelsi Stockert here.
Yeah. All right. We're your human athletes, just like you. And I'm the Chief Transition Guide at Athlete Career Transition, and also was a professional goalkeeper with the USA Women's Olympic water polo team. I'm an Olympic silver medalist and fully retired after 10 plus years now. How about you, Kelsi?
I am the Chief Storyteller at Athlete Career Transition, and I'm also a former USA rugby player. I played with the 15s and 7s team for about 5 years total, but 10 years in rugby all around. But now fully transitioned and into the business world.
Yeah, fantastic. Here we are. Okay, so what we're going to do is today we're talking about self-awareness, and what better way to start with that with actually some self-awareness practices. So one thing that I guide our athlete career transition team with, our ACT team, and the athletes that I have the privilege of working with, is through some grounding exercises, just a few moments of breathing and checking in with our body. So Kelsi and I were going to do this just before recording, and we want you to have the opportunity to have this experience with us. So Kelsi, are you ready to assume the position?
I'm ready, nice and grounded.
Okay, fantastic. So for those listening in, if you are moving any apparatus or machines, please keep doing so. Keep your eyes open. If you are in a position to actually close your eyes and relax, please go for that too. Either way, you're going to get something out of this. So I invite you just to settle into your body and to the simplicity of your breath. Just notice your inhale and your exhale. Noticing what moves in your body as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Maybe noticing any movement around the waist, the torso, movement within the spine, in the rib cage expanding as you inhale, and any movement in the chest, and the neck, and even in the mouth or the nose. And giving your body a scan from the bottom up, all the way up through your body, noticing any part of your body, what it's telling you today. Whether that's little aches or pains or discomforts, or maybe something else. Noticing any tension in any muscles. And continue to breathe in and out. And know that you're exactly where you're meant to be. And that who you are in this moment is freaking awesome and perfect. And when you're ready, come back to this moment. And if your eyes are closed, go ahead and open them. How are you feeling, Kelsi?
Oh, I feel so nice and grounded and just present and in the moment. You know, focusing on your breath really just allows you to just be at peace. And it's so nice and refreshing. So thanks for that recharge.
Yeah, absolutely. That felt nice in my body too. Well, that leads us perfectly into self-awareness, right? And what do we want to, how do we want to feel? So speaking of self-awareness, which is feeling related, how do we want to feel at the end of this call, Kelsi?
I'd like to just feel a sense of pride and accomplishment and a sense of happiness, knowing that we're talking about self-awareness. We are having these conversations, speaking from vulnerable and authentic selves. to really change that conversation behind retirement, behind the transition, while focusing on self-awareness. So I'm just hoping to feel that kind of like that good energy, that good vibe after we leave this conversation.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, and for me, self-awareness, I want to feel at the end of this conversation, and knowing that we've shared our experiences or tools or anything that might be of benefit to somebody else, to those listening, and whatever that may be. It may spark this insight, it may spark an awareness, it may, maybe even that grounding exercise was just exactly what you needed listening in, just that I feel like we've offered something that feels authentic to us, and also relevant to the sporting community, to those or anyone going through transition, right? Yeah. And that leads us in right to
exactly.
Yeah. How do you want the athlete or the listener to feel at the end of this call? Not that we can define how you feel, of course, those listening, but how would you like them to feel?
Yeah. No, I really, really hope the listener feels seen, that they feel understood and not so alone, and that they're asking themselves questions, looking inward, and feeling some sense of motivation or sense of self-accountability to really grow their relationship with their inner self.
Ooh,
what about you, Jamie?
Yes. Yummy. It's yummy. Yeah, I'd love for you listening to be able to feel like you've learned something about yourself that allows you to move forward in your life in a direction that feels good for you. And learning something about yourself just might be that aha moment, or like, oh, wow, I hadn't thought of myself that way, or I didn't notice this about myself. And just to bring to feel a little more curious maybe about what you're experiencing, what your body's telling you, what you're thinking, and whatnot. Yep. Okay.
I love that curiosity point. That is amazing.
Thanks. I think that's going to be a theme today. Is there's going to be a little bit of that curiosity in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything specific we want you to listen or for you to walk away with? What do you think, Kelsi?
So for me, when I think of self-awareness, it kind of almost goes with this self-accountability. In order to nourish this relationship with yourself and to really be aware, you have to be accountable with yourself, and you have to give yourself that space and that time. So I hope we all walk away kind of taking an inner checklist and making sure, like, am I holding myself accountable? Am I nourishing this relationship with my inner self? Am I authentically me? And just that sense of self-awareness all around. Yes, that authentic piece. That's beautiful. And I'll just add to that. Yeah, walking away with, I think whether again, some type of tool or something that you can use on a daily basis, but not that is a forced tool that you have to use that's hard to use, but more like something like, oh, I'm already using it. I literally just practiced it in this moment. That's kind of the fun part about self-awareness, I think, too, is that you naturally start practicing it as you start thinking about it, as you start to, reflecting, for example. It's exactly when it's at the forefront of your mind, you find things. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love it. Yes. And I find, and the reason we're talking today about transition and with self-awareness, it's a key ingredient for transition. And to me, it's like, walking in the dark with a flashlight. Self-awareness is the flashlight, allows you to see what the heck is going on and what is around you, but also, quite honestly, what's within you. Yeah. Well, and so often, especially in this transition time, you can feel so alone and so confused and kind of fearful of these feelings, or almost like some guilt behind it and stuff. So that flashlight analogy is perfect, because there's so many feelings. If we're not self-aware, if we're not moving that flashlight around and looking at all of ourselves fully and authentically, we can hide some pieces, and those can resonate some bad thoughts, some negative vibes, and just not what we need to be self-aware and to be authentically ourselves. So that flashlight analogy is so powerful, because it's really just, shining light on who we are as our person, and what, without society's, expectations or whatever, what makes us genuinely happy, bring light to that.
Yes, what makes you you, what makes you happy, what makes you feel fulfilled, and to be able to reflect on that and explore what that actually is for you. And, you and I are going there. We love going into the dark and exploring those. Well, I don't know if we love it, but we're willing to go in the dark to go explore these, these emotions, all these feelings, the guilt, everything that does come up at this time, and that does come up with self-awareness, because self-awareness is a gift and we can use it to our advantage. And yes, things do come up that we may think are not gifts, but maybe they actually could be looked at as a gift. We'll see through this conversation.
Exactly. And how you can turn it into something else, and how you can connect with other athletes, because so often through this retirement, the conversation's not really had. And so you kind of feel guilt and shame behind some of the feelings you're having, and you feel alone. But with hoping to have these conversations and talk about it vulnerably and go through those dark times, I really hope the listener knows that they're not alone, that we all kind of go through this and have that like aha moment, like, whoa, everyone kind of experiences this. This is kind of part of the transition, and we're working through the grudge of it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. Okay, so as a brief definition of self-awareness, I mean, if we do a little Google, what it really is the conscious knowledge of one's own character and feelings and motives and desires. I mean, these are just, some of the definitions you'll find if you Google it. It also talks about that, while consciousness is being aware of one's environment and body and lifestyle, self-awareness is the recognition of that awareness. So self-awareness is recognizing like what you're consciously aware of, what you are experiencing. And I was doing a little fun research behind this and learning that there is internal awareness, self-awareness, and external self-awareness. Internal self-awareness is where, our feelings about ourselves, our awareness about what we're experiencing internally, about our kind of who we are and what we're feeling and thoughts and sensations. And then the external self-awareness is the piece of our awareness of how we're interacting with the world, how people are responding to us, how, and kind of that feedback experience with people. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm.
I love that. I never even thought of that. That is such a true statement.
Yeah. And so let's look at, we're just going to combine that all together right now. And you'll maybe, listening, you'll notice maybe which ones may be external self-awareness, which ones may be internal. Kelsi, what are some examples for you of, let's start first of when in your life have you not practiced self-awareness? Like you notice it. You're like, now looking back at it.
Oh my gosh. So a big chunk of period of time, I was really unaware with myself. It was after I had retired from rugby. I walked away from the sevens team and completely and told the 15s team, I'm like, look, I need to take care of my mental health and kind of focus on me and my family. I'll let you know, kind of thing. And it took me a year and a half to officially retire from the 15s team from there, with like not playing, not training or doing anything with them. But to come to that conclusion, not conclusion, but that recognition that like my happiness isn't aligned with rugby anymore. And that's just where I was at. But in that year and a half, oh my gosh, I was the most unaware of myself that I have ever been. And honestly, through the end of my sporting career, I was pretty unaware. I didn't really know what made me happy. So much of my self-worth and self-accomplishment and self-sense of pride came from sport. And so when I didn't have sport anymore, I didn't know what it was. I had my little moments as a mom winning, and I felt accomplished and prideful there, but I didn't know what it meant to me. I didn't know what happiness was. I didn't know what my future held. I didn't know what I wanted. I was just completely unaware of who I was as a person. And I was working at Starbucks as a barista. And I remember like taking on so much sense of pride in how fast I could make and craft these lattes. And I was like offended if people called me slow. And I was like, no, because I was so unaware with myself that I had like put all of this drive and determination that I had from being an elite athlete and being a rugby player into being a barista. And I did not need to do that. And that wasn't where I wanted to put my effort and my pride in. It wasn't necessarily in making coffee. So I had to really like refocus myself and figure out and learn what happiness meant for me, learn what success meant for me, not anyone else, but for me specifically. Because oh man, that time of not knowing and just kind of like working through it and figuring out, it was just I was so unaware of myself and just not happy and feeling such a lack of fulfillment and a lack of purpose.
Kelsi, I'm hearing such a deep connection, if I'm hearing you correctly, between, self-awareness and identity, like an identity based on outer circumstances, outer, things out of our control, so to speak, like not who we are inside, so to speak, right? Self-awareness, if we're talking about that internal self-awareness, it's like who you are. And I'm hearing that was the exploration phase of like, who am I space, if I'm hearing you correctly.
100%, because for so long I was an athlete. I was a rugby player, and that was kind of part of my self-identity. And that's how unfortunately, I kind of measured some of my self-worth in some ways. I found myself really feeling defeated when I wouldn't make a team. But when I made a team, I was feeling on top of the world and so accomplished. And it was because I took so much pride in who I was as an athlete. And when I transitioned out of sport, I didn't know who I was without rugby. I didn't know what to kind of focus all of my abilities and my passions and my determination towards. I was just very lost and having to kind of dig through those dark times and those dark moments with that flashlight. I had to search around and figure out, okay, what makes me happy without rugby? I'm not, traveling the world and having all these amazing accomplishments. And I don't have that sense of adrenaline and that sense of like, oh, I'm making the team in that rush of going and playing and stepping on that rugby field. And so I really had to dig deep and kind of like, almost like an onion, like dig through all the different layers of the onion to get to figure out who I was and what made me happy and what core values that I could take from rugby and translate into other aspects and venues of my life. But really ultimately, like what made me happy and who I was and what core values I took pride in, without sport. And it was such a journey of self-exploration, self-identity, and just figuring out like, okay, who's Kelsi? Like not the rugby player Kelsi, who's not the mom Kelsi, who is Kelsi? What makes Kelsi happy?
Yes. Oh, Kelsi, that's so powerful hearing that. And the journey that you've been on. I mean, no wonder you're so passionate about the storytelling of athletes, particularly going through this time of transition. And what a gift that you are able to share your story and journey. And then also, to share others' journeys as well. And the experience that you're sharing reminds me of, and this tunes into self-awareness. When we put all our efforts and all our eggs in a basket, so to speak, when we put all our energy into one thing, something we've dedicated years and thousands of hours to, we literally have an expertise in, and it's mostly focused on that. It could be work. It could be, in our case, it was sport, which was, a form of work because it's a career. It is, it does also pay the bills. And when we put all our energy into that, there's other areas of our life. Every area of our life impacts our well-being that are all dependent on that sport. So I think of the concept of there's a wellness wheel. There's these, the wellness wheel is the idea that you have the different areas of your life, say 6 to 8 areas, like career, finances, relationships, environment, surroundings, spirituality, these areas that impact our well-being. Our well-being is our sense of life satisfaction. And I'm going to I flip that a little bit and I call it your sense of life fulfillment on your terms. Because it's important that it's yours, right? It's your authentic, belief that it's yours. And so I'm hearing too, Kelsi, this time of, awareness of, okay, my energy, my relationships, my finances, my career, my surroundings, my environment were all dependent on sport. And now I'm in this new situation. So what is my sense of life fulfillment, life satisfaction on my terms? Because it's been on the terms of involved with something else. It was very dependent on something else or related to, and now it's this kind of almost like
100%
free space of free, which is exciting and also, whoa, scary space.
Foreign, new, like lonely. And you're like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So that's self-awareness space. And I'm reflecting. I find it fascinating, Kelsi. You share the story of when you retired, or when you said, I'm going to, or not yet retired, but you said, I'm going to step away for a bit. And then there was that exploration phase. And my phase of that, my kind of a awareness when I was not practicing self-awareness, let's say, was when I was training. There was the self-awareness where, yes, I'd be very self-aware in the water as a goalkeeper, you know, knowing exactly where the goal is behind me, because you're usually a couple feet out from it and you don't even see the goal, but you know where it is behind you as you're looking at the ball, as people are, you know, we're all treading water and you're watching someone about to shoot the ball. Like, you know where the goal is behind you. There's that physical sense of awareness. I was self-aware that my body was injured, you know, needing more surgeries, that my head was really fuzzy. Had concussions. I wasn't dealing with them. I didn't really know what to do with them. And also, though, there was a lack of the self-awareness of really what I was feeling. I was feeling something, but I didn't want to feel it, which was the dissatisfaction of where I was at that point. The dissatisfaction of not my performance per se. It was partially my performance, but it was actually more so my dissatisfaction of my life circumstance, my well-being, really. I was not aware how...
Totally.
I don't know if maybe unhappy I was, and how much I actually cared about being happy in what I do. And I actually really want to love what I do. And it was really sad to notice that when I realized I loved something for so long and I don't love it right now. Oh no. Right. And I didn't have that self-awareness. And I will also acknowledge,
oh my gosh,
sometimes we want to avoid that self-awareness because it's scary, because that means we have to, if we want to, we have a choice and we can say, I'm done.
Oh my gosh, that just speaks so much to my transition and when I decided to walk away from the training center, because I was living in Chula Vista, California, which is right outside of San Diego, at the Olympic Training Center, training with the USA Sevens team. I was literally doing my dream. I was playing rugby full time and playing in the most beautiful place in the U.S. Like, it was just the training center where the rugby pitch was just surreal. The California sunsets, it was amazing. And I remember vividly, there's this one time that I was walking to training by myself and I just looked around and I was like, how am I in the most amazing place? Like, I'm literally living my dream life. And I feel this depressed. I feel this anxious.
Ooh.
I feel this miserable. Like, how is that? I felt so much shame and so much like, you know, like, I kind of was like, Kelsi, who are you? You're being so selfish. Like, you're literally living the dream. Like, how dare you feel miserable? How dare you feel depressed? And it took some time to really get to that self-awareness and that realization to be like, wait a second, like, this isn't aligning up with what makes me happy. Like, every time I go to a training, every time I went to a camp or went to a tournament, it was like, I wasn't healthy. I wasn't happy. I wasn't feeling good. And it took a long time to kind of navigate that, but to finally realize that, like, this isn't where my happiness and what I think is success. I don't know what it is, but this isn't lining up. They're not working out. I don't want to feel this way anymore. And it's okay that I feel this way. And what I need to do is walk away from rugby. And it was the hardest decision I made, but I'm so proud of myself for doing it, because in doing so, I was able to really get self-aware, explore myself, and figure out what success and happiness looked like for me, and start living my life authentically and chasing what I feel is happiness and what I feel is success. Versus, you know, I was living my dream life. You should feel amazing. You should be doing this. There shouldn't be, you know, without all that shame, I guess. So yeah, I'm so glad you spoke on that, because it was just like, whoa, yeah, totally. I know exactly what you're talking about, Jamie.
Yeah. You know, you're tapping in, I feel like, Kelsi, to that of self-awareness is a gift, is something we can all cultivate. We all have that ability to cultivate and bring more into, and we'll get into practices, ways to cultivate your own self-awareness, and what the gifts are of that, like why we want to do it. One of the challenges of self-awareness is, I was reading by this article, a Harvard Business Review article by Tosha Urek, who has done quite a bit of study, a lot of study on self-awareness, and mentioning that those who are highly self-aware can also have this increase of anxiety and depression and all these kind of emotions, because we're very aware of our emotions then. So I think what we're also tapping into right now, Kelsi, is this Well, yes, we can practice self-awareness, or maybe we have it, maybe we've cultivated it. And again, today we'll share our ways to do that. What do we do with it at that point? Because to actually act on it, to be self-aware, to realize that one is unhappy or that one is very happy and you love what you're doing and you want to keep doing it, even if people are telling you not to do it, right? So it could go both ways. That's a whole different ball game, to actually act on what you are actually feeling or hearing or noticing or sensing. Kelsi, this leads us to exploring what is an example for you of practicing awareness, self-awareness.
Oh, yes, it is. First of all, it's that, like I said earlier, that like self-accountability and doing those like mental checklists with yourself, like making sure you're growing that relationship with yourself. Because sometimes I found myself, even now that I'm more and more focusing on growing the relationship with myself and being self-aware, I can find myself getting so distracted and like hooked by other things and priorities and just life in general, that if I don't allow myself to like take the time and sit and be like, okay, am I feeling happy? Am I doing things that makes me happy? And honestly, almost every day I try to do some kind of similar to what you and I did at the beginning, but just really focusing on my breath and allowing myself to sit and have 5 or 10 minutes to myself to really be like, okay, you know, every morning is when I like to do it the most, because it helps me ground for my day. And before the craziness of being a mom, working, and now growing a baby too, it's like, I need a little me time. So, you know, in the mornings I try to sit with myself and just maybe have some music playing, but just really allow myself to take that self-accountability checklist and see where I'm at, see where if I'm aligned with myself, and to think of like, okay, what are my intentions for the day, and what can I do to be most authentically me and be the best Kelsi that I want to be? What kind of steps and what little actions can I do throughout this day to help me get there and help nourish that relationship with myself and kind of keep myself accountable in the sense of who I want to be and what makes me happy and what I define as successful. So just really allowing myself that space, and, you know, being aware that I need that space first thing in the morning to myself. So even if that means waking up 30 minutes before everyone else, allowing myself to do so, to really ground myself and to check in with myself and make sure that I'm living authentically me and what I want to do and what I'm aligned with. So just really creating that space.
Yes, I'm hearing you create a tangible practice, something that's happening, like a morning ritual, so to speak. Like it's happening in the morning, you make time for it, and it requires that intention to make time for it, to create those boundaries to do so. And then also this space of even reflection. You know, reflection is such a powerful tool for us to learn more about ourselves or reflect on an experience and gain from an experience. And I'm hearing you kind of reflect on just where you are at in the moment, and also that the powerful practice of intention setting, of looking ahead of that space of, okay, what do I need? And I'm hearing you also ask questions. Questions is so funny. I wrote on a list of like, okay, here, what are some tools for self-awareness? And one of them is asking questions of yourself. Just ask a question, like an open-ended question. What do I need? You know, what is my heart telling me? What is my body telling me? And I'm hearing you creating that and cultivating that for yourself on a daily basis.
I found through my time of, you know, being really not self-aware and not focusing on myself, I found that I really needed to build a relationship with myself, and that was the most important relationship I have is with myself. So to honestly like have those open-ended conversations with myself, even though like, you know, saying you're talking to yourself kind of sounds a little like, okay, a little out of field, but also
I do it all the time.
I'm not like physically talking out loud. Right? Honestly, I talk to myself so much. Like in the car, I'm just like, okay, Kelsi, how would you attack this situation, or how would you go about this? But really just like asking myself these questions, like, is this making you happy? Or what's making you unhappy? Or do you really want to do this? Or where are these expectations coming from? And exploring myself and kind of not seeing myself as two different people, but just making sure I'm nourishing that relationship with myself. Was like the key to that self-awareness, because if I'm not in tune with myself, then how am I supposed to be self-aware, you know?
Oh, yes, so true. And you know, a similar practice for me is, I was thinking about different practices that I do, that examples of self-awareness. And the way I think of it is, the opportune time for self-awareness is in the transitions. And what I mean by that is, I was just thinking about it, actually waking up in the morning. So the alarm is set for me at 5:01 a.m. I like 01. It's fun for me. 5:01 a.m. and I get up. And if I could just get up out of bed and I literally walk out and put on my clothes on, to me, I'm missing a transition in that moment, because transitions are big moments, like retiring from a sport, of course. They're also the little moments when I get off of a call and before I do the next thing, when I get into a car, when I get out of a car, when you get on a phone call, every little moment from one thing to another is a transition and how you internally process it. And for me, for example, when I get up in the morning, I'll just sit for a moment in bed and just pause and breathe and just check in, like literally just more of just a breathe, but like, where's my body? Where are my thoughts right now? Am I still in my dream? I kind of am. Okay, there you are, Jamie. Nice to see you. Right. So these kind of like these little pauses, and to bring it into the workspace, when I have coaching calls with athletes, I create these blocks of time. And again, we're talking about boundaries a bit again, creating, specific boundaries. I'll have gaps of time between calls so I can actually be more self-aware, because after I get off a phone call, I want to pause and I close my eyes and just let that conversation sink in. I let my body relax if I was, tense at all for whatever reason, or whatever I was feeling, and let myself really just let those thoughts soak in and allow that space to be self-aware. And I feel like the transition time, again, between, say, phone calls, for example, and it could be the most casual of phone calls, right? It's just the ability to pause and just let your body kind of find yourself, catch up with you with what you were doing, just to ground yourself in that moment before you move on to the next thing. But I also notice it helps create closure for me, closure from what I was doing before, closure from the phone call, closure from any thoughts or any judgments I had about myself or whatever it may be. And then, while I'm speaking about these transitions or these self-awareness moments kind of in little transitions throughout the day, I also think that there's beautiful opportunity of self-awareness while you're in the moment. Right? It's just like when we're playing a sport, like we could be super hyper aware. We're in the flow and we're recognizing, for me, for example, like if I'm treading water, I know where I am in the goal. I know where everybody is in the pool with me. I know where the ball is. I'm super hyper aware of my physical position and even my own thoughts in that moment, maybe. And so we do have the ability to also be aware in a moment of, like, for example, say if I'm on a phone call with an athlete, if I'm feeling any emotion, something that they're sharing with me, and I'm feeling like some grief with it, like, ooh, that's heavy. That touches a heart spot for me. Okay, Jamie, you're feeling grief. You're not just freaking out right now. You can name it. You can name what you're feeling. Grief. Hello. Yeah.
Well, and it's so cool. I've found through this transition and through this journey of self-awareness, I found that I'm able to use that almost in sport. Like for me on the rugby field, very self-aware, very hyper-aware. You know where their ball is. You know where the space is. You know where you need to defend. You know what shoulder you need to be on to make the proper tackle and not get exploited, basically. And you're adaptable and you know how to kind of navigate because you're so self-aware. And I found when I wasn't very self-aware that I was not adaptable at all. And I wasn't able to navigate what life throws at me and navigate the things. It was so defeating and so kind of catastrophizing almost because I wasn't self-aware. I wasn't aware of my surroundings. I wasn't aware of where I was at with myself. I wasn't aware of my body. I was just kind of there almost. It was weird. It was the weirdest thing. But being able to translate that, that self-awareness in sport and, that ability to stay in the moment where if you make a mistake, you have to just flush it, next task kind of thing. Yep. And to have that relationship with yourself and build that understanding and that self-awareness helps so much in the real world and all aspects of my life and in the journey of self-awareness, because I'm able to be aware of where I'm at. Like you said, name the feelings. Okay, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling this. This is what I need to do, and navigate the next step and move forward with it. And I think that has been such a great tool from sport into my just day-to-day life now, that I've been so grateful to have ingrained in me, and so grateful that sport really taught me to, not only be self-aware, but also to move on. If you mess up, if you make a mistake, or if you weren't self-aware, you found yourself in a moment of like not self-awareness, to, okay, name it, acknowledge it, and move forward, because you're in the moment and you're moving towards the next thing,
Yeah, there's this tangible practice of actually, maybe like we said, just naming it, moving on, and even sometimes like a physical reaction that we do. For example, like if I got scored on in the goal, my tendency would be, if I noticed I was getting heavy on myself, like, oh, Jamie, come on, I would go underwater and just pause, because it's silent underwater. It's loud up above, but it's silent underwater for the most part. And it would just center me. And that was my physical practice of self-awareness of, okay, recheck, ground, and which is in tune with grounding yourself, self-awareness. And I'm using that as also kind of a way to ground yourself. Did you have any practices like that, Kelsi? Something that you'd physically do for yourself too?
I love that you said that. I'm low-key kind of jealous of the water situation, but I can't swim at all. But I can only imagine how peaceful that, like, going under the water would feel in that time in the middle of a game. Like, oh, yeah. That sounds amazing, because rugby, you don't have a piece of quiet at all. But no, I love that you said that. Actually, I had kind of like two pieces of self-awareness. So if it was like kind of like not a game-changing mistake, or, whatever, I wasn't happy with myself, I would always like kind of like clap my hands. Just like one clap to kind of like squash that thought, squash that feeling, that physical sensation of like, okay, snap back, next task.
Love it.
We're in the game.
Yeah.
So that was like my own personal, just like, bam, because it was kind of physical and it felt good, and it was like, all right, next thing. But sometimes I would find myself like really not able to shake it, because, sometimes in rugby, it's like, especially in sevens, one mistake and they're scoring a game-winning goal, and that's that. And it sucks. And, or game-winning try. And so in some of those moments, I would always have a teammate on my team that I would able to be like, get external with, to either like connect with, and just like what we do, I'd like say, give me the hoop. And so one of my teammates would hold up a hoop, like a basketball hoop, and I would just like dump it in, just take that moment of trash, dump it in the hoop. And the next thing, we're done from that. Because it would also like, not only like take me out of myself and like out of my head, but it would also connect me with my teammates. It would kind of make us laugh, because we're like looking like fools on the rugby field, like, and sometimes I'd get really ridiculous with it, because it was a really big mess up, so I have to do a big shot, and it was just kind of like erase things and just be like, okay, be present, next task. So yeah, those are my two tips on self-awareness in the middle of a rugby game.
And I love that. And you can totally bring that into your daily life. And what I also love hearing, Kelsi, is you just brought in the power of, while self-awareness sounds like a very individual thing, it's a very personal thing, right? There's also ways to cultivate your self-awareness with others and help bring in that extra ingredient that's, we're not touching on it yet, but we're going to be touching on the next episode. I know even more about self-compassion, like actually being kind with yourself in the moment and having your teammates help. In the water, if a goal got scored on me, is that eye contact for me with one of my teammates. It was just be like, oh, hi, we're here. We're connected. Okay. We're human. It happens. Let's move on. Okay. There was this sense of connection that was so powerful that also,
and it's so powerful moment and trust.
Yeah. Oh, powerful. Yeah. So, so just even thinking a big picture of all the tools that we've just touched on. We've touched about physical tools, physical, tangible ways to actually cultivate awareness. Like you kind of create this habit, whether it's like you're clapping, getting yourself out of it, whether it's something interactive with a teammate, a friend, a colleague, a coworker, something that helps you kind of bring yourself grounded and centered and in check with yourself. We've talked about the power of asking yourself questions, and which again, I love, because again, being a coach, I literally will talk to myself in the car and coach myself, and it's like the most therapeutic thing, besides actually talking to another person.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And we've also we've touched on this one briefly, and I'll just emphasize it even more. We mentioned reflection, like the power of reflecting, and also creating boundaries to actually give yourself the time to reflect, to be present. And while we can always be self-aware at something, actually pausing to spend some time for self-awareness, and just for yourself, I'm hearing like from your practice, your morning ritual is just money for you for the day. Like it sounds like it's a game changer.
It really is. Honestly, the past 3 or 4 days, pregnancy has kind of kicked me with insomnia. And so I've been struggling to get up in the mornings to do everything. And I was not being my best self. I was a little snappier with my daughter, and I don't like being like that. And I wasn't the best partner for my partner that he needs and, that he deserves. And I wasn't the best Kelsi I could be. And I talked with my partner yesterday, and I was like, you know what? Like, I've totally messed up. I haven't been doing my morning rituals, and that really gives me the space to set intentions with my day and to be aware. Because when I just get up for the day and just start doing things, I'm so not aware of myself and what I want to do and my intentions for the day that I just get carried away in these hooks, these negative hooks. So I really need to do that. And this morning I did it, and it was just like, it's a total game changer for my day. And it's just really allowing myself and being aware that, like, you know what, in order to be the best Kelsi, that is exactly what I need, and I need to honor that. And it just makes me feel so good that that's why today I felt so much more grounded and more with myself, because I'm more in tune with my authentic self. So I'm not kind of fighting myself. I'm working towards being that best Kelsi I can be. And it's a game changer, and just creating those boundaries, and it's a simple 5-10 minutes to myself, and that's it. And that can speak so powerfully to the rest of my day, and really help myself live authentically.
Oh, wow. I'm hearing something that's just worked so powerfully for you, and it resonates with me deeply. Again, having 2 little ones, and knowing when I don't make time for myself in the morning, for example, if I don't get up before them and I don't have my quiet time, my solo time, for example, I am also very just snappy. I'm quick and I'm rushed, and the energy is so say self-awareness wise, the energy is in my head. It's very thick and heavy in my head versus really relaxed and at pace, and kind of trusting in the pace that's happening, and coming to every conversation being really open-ended and curious versus a little anxious and hey, okay, let's get the job done. Let's go, and it shows, right? So I'm also for those listening, remember, making the time for yourself is not selfish. What you're doing for yourself, for self-awareness, for cultivating your own happiness, your own energy, your sense of fulfillment, wherever you are in your transition of any transition, daily transition, sports transition, beyond, that is going to ripple out into for everybody else, everyone around you. So tending to you helps everybody.
Yeah, well, and especially as athletes, I feel like we take so much pride in the work we do on the field, off the field, in the gym, watching film. We take so much pride in really giving ourselves the time to be experts of these different things, or even in our personal lives. We take the time to be better partners. If when we're realizing our relationship, for instance, isn't as great as it can be, you take some time and you reevaluate with your partner. Okay, what can we do? Okay, maybe even just spending 10-15 minutes together to talk, or whatever that may be. We want to do that, and we work towards that. But I feel like as a society, we lack so much empathy with ourselves and creating boundaries and building the relationship with ourselves. We forget about ourselves so much. And especially in that transition, when you're trying to feel that new, or find out who you really are, and kind of create a new identity for yourself and become self-aware, you have to create that space and put in that work, just like you would in the gym, just like you would on the rugby field, just like you would in the water. You have to put that work in with yourself and make sure you're building a relationship with yourself, and that's what I hope the listeners feel empowered and encouraged to do. So is do I take enough time for myself? Am I in tune with myself? What can I do to be more in tune with myself? What can I do to tap into this self-awareness? And whatever that may be, maybe it's taking some time in the morning, maybe it's going for a morning or an evening walk, or whatever it can be, some yoga, whatever. Take that time for yourself to allow yourself to explore you and explore who you are, and build that relationship and put that work into that relationship with yourself, just like you would with a partner, with a child, with a teammate. Put in that work, because as athletes, we know how to put in the work, and we just got to make sure we're putting in the work for ourselves too.
Yes, absolutely. And it's not as tangible, like the self-awareness, the practice for you. It's not as tangible sometimes looking as, I'm putting the hours in the pool. I'm training for 6 hours a day. Like, that's very clear what you're doing there. You know, it's a physical training. Your body is on and then it's off for the rest of the time. And our minds are constantly on, you know, for the most part. And we don't measure as often, you know, how our emotional well-being, our, you know, our thoughts, and some of them are very difficult to measure. So we do have, by spending time like this though, you know, having these conversations. And so for you listening, remember, you deserve this time for you. You deserve this time to explore who you are. You don't have to know exactly who you are. That's part of the adventure. None of us do any of it. We're all just pretending. I mean, let's be honest. We're always learning about ourselves. This is an ongoing journey. And self-awareness, these tools that we've shared today and more, there's more out there. These can help you, again, just cultivate your relationship with yourself and your sense of life fulfillment on your terms, and really celebrate the whole human athlete, not just the athlete piece, but the whole human, so you can thrive in sport and after sport and beyond.
Yeah, take that flashlight and flash it around all the dark places you have, every aspect, 360 view, because as an athlete, you're a human and you're so much more than just an athlete. And then through this transition time, there's going to be some places you don't want to shine it on, but I promise you, shine it on that, go through it, work with yourself, nourish yourself, love yourself, and just stay self-aware through it, and you'll get through it. The dark time, it won't be so scary. It will not be as scary, and you're not alone at all.
No, we're doing this together, all of us. And so with that said too, the next episode is going to be all about self-compassion, because we're talking about self-awareness. And so when we're aware of what we're feeling, and we're aware of these emotions, and we're aware of like, oh my gosh, I feel guilt about, you know, and shame about my experience or who I was, or I feel excitement and I feel like I shouldn't feel excited, you know, whatever it may be. You know what? Self-compassion can come in really handy there. So we're going to practice. We're going to talk about all the gifts of self-compassion, what it is, what it looks like, how to practice it, how we can use it in sport, how we can use it after sport. And as we wrap up, Kelsi, just out of curiosity, what are you learning about yourself from this conversation?
You know, I have learned almost kind of like, this has been a really good reflection time. Kind of that accountability, and that, okay, I've been on the road to self-awareness, and also I can do a little more work with myself. I can, you know, keep holding myself accountable to my morning rituals, and add in another thing at night to be a little more self-aware. So it's made me feel a little looking inward and checking in with myself too, which I really appreciate in that reflection moment, because self-awareness is just so important. And in order for all of us to be our best, most authentic, amazing selves, we have to build this relationship with ourselves. So yeah, I'm excited to keep looking inward, keep reflecting, and keep on this journey to self-awareness through this transition.
Yeah. Thank you, Kelsi. As I'm reflecting, I'm also learning, you know, how connected self-awareness is to every aspect of any transition, you know, through your day, as you go from one activity to the other, as you're in the activity, or as you are transitioning out of sport or out of work or out of relationship, right, and into something else. But just like how self-awareness is like this, it is that flashlight, it's that connection, and that there's actually so many tools that we can use to cultivate it, which all are based, I think, also in prioritizing you. And that was a big, kind of just a big theme I noticed through this conversation. I felt like I'm just reaffirming, like, whoa, yeah, and do this for yourself, Jamie. Like, keep getting up in the morning. Even though, yes, you're tired, get up at 5 a.m. for yourself, because it feels so good later. Okay, Jamie. Yes. All right, and for you listening, what are you learning about yourself through this conversation? Let that marinate for a moment. And I also invite you to think about, if any of these tools resonated with you, which one or some would you like to bring into your life to try out? Remember, this is just an experiment. Try it on for size. It's nothing you have to dedicate for a whole week or a year. It could literally be for a day, just to see what something is like. Experiment. Let's practice that curiosity, like Kelsi brought in earlier in the conversation. Curiosity.
I love it.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Human Athlete Podcast. Kelsi, thank you as always. You rock.
You rock, Jamie. Thanks for changing these conversations with me, and thanks for being the amazing, authentic you that you are. I'm so grateful to be a part of these podcasts with you.
Yay! Thank you. And for all those listening, thank you for being you. Ciao.
Yes, thank you. Go practice your self-awareness. Be the best you. You got this.
Thank you for joining us today on the Human Athlete Podcast. To learn more, we invite you to visit www.athletecareertransition.com. See you next time.